Hello and welcome to The Cutting Room, a YouTube channel of fire, blood and movie analysis from all the right movies. I'm John, and with me today it's our very own war boys, Matt.
Hello.
And Westy.
Hello.
This is part 3 of our episode on Mad Max Fury Road, where we'll be talking about our highlights from the film and then giving our final ratings. The first 2 parts are available right here, and now, the highlights. We've mentioned some huge moments in the film already, but now we're getting specific to talk about our highlights. So, Westy, what are you going for as your highlight from Mad Max Fury Road?
Do you know what? I've got so many highlights from this film. I would probably just say the whole film is a highlight. It's just, I don't think there's any point where I just think, that doesn't really work. But the highlight for me, I have to choose it, is when you first see Max. He steps on that lizard, whatever thing, and then eats it. You've got that voiceover. And then you get the chase where he just disappears, and it waits just long enough. The edit is just beautiful. It waits just long enough, and then he's pursued by something else. And then it cuts to that wide shot, and then the car crashes in real time. Practical effect, physical. And I remember seeing that crash, and I just went, this is what they normally do at the end of most films that I've seen. This is the first 5 minutes, and this is almost throwaway. This is how they catch him and they grab him and they pull him out. And just that opening of him just being there, and you just see the wasteland, you get the voiceover, and that's why it's my highlight, because it just set me up perfectly for what was coming next. And I was just, there's just one after the other, after the other, after the other, after this. It just gets better and better and better and better. But that's weirdly why this is my highlight, because it just went, it set the bar at 100 and I left the cinema at like 700. It was just like, and I love that. I love that about it. I love the start just being so visceral and just so energetic and just so perfect. And that's why I love that sequence.
Yeah, something I wanted to talk about, which relates back to this opening sequence, is the editing, which is just sensational all the way through the film. The editor was Margaret Sixel, George Miller's wife, and he said that he hired her because if a guy did it, it would be like every other action movie, so he wanted a woman to do it. And after production, she had 470 hours of footage dumped on her, and she watched every second of it, which took 3 months.
Wow.
Something I love that she does is the little trick of removing certain frames at certain points in the action, which gives this really frantic feeling. And I mention it now because it's most obvious, I think, in the opening sequence when the war boys are chasing Max. There's frames taken out of that sequence in the cave area, and it just seems really strange and really intense. Incredible editing, and she won an Oscar as well for it. I think she was surprised about as anybody else.
Did that actually happen?
Fully deserved. There's so much pace to this edit.
Yeah.
And John Seal as well, I have to give him a nod because he came out of retirement to do this. John Seal was in his 70s as well.
Deep in.
And it gives me so much hope where I'm like, well, I'm 41, but I don't have to do anything for another 30 years. It's producing the best stuff. And it's just, if you watch one of the end sequences or one of the action sequences now, everyone's just framed in the middle of the frame. There's no rule of thirds in this. There's no artsy-fartsy, this needs to be where it needs to be. Everyone's in the center of the frame. And the way that that's cut together, there's so much pace. The camera moves to every cut. It's just incredible.
I mean, everything you read about this film is just Miller just being an absolute master of action. He just knows everything about it.
Put it in the middle.
Fantastic,
Put it in the middle. It shouldn't work. Putting everything in the middle should be really boring and slow, but then the way he cuts it together, it's just incredible.
It's often the stunt work that I find most impressive. The moment that the war boy leaps off the war rig onto the Buzzard's car to blow it up. We mentioned the bit in the canyon where Furiosa tries to get back on the war rig and a rock rider slides under the truck on his motorbike and grabs her. Insane.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Really dangerous. Really dangerous.
Too dangerous.
For my highlight, though, I mentioned before how I like the way that Miller gives us something different with each action sequence. The Buzzards, then the war boys, the rock riders, all great. And my favourite are the Polecats.
Yes.
The war boys turn up on those huge pogo stick things. Insane and totally brilliant. That first shot where we see Max looking at something off camera, and then we get that incredible shot of them coming into the frame on the poles. It's like, what the hell is this? And it's great how
what
they
they're
drop
going
it.
to do? Are they going to make any kind of impact? Bombs. Amazing.
But it's great how they drop in and steal one of Joe's wives back. So he Kravitz isn't a Catwoman now. And the stunt work is just fantastic and just really, really exciting. There's a good story on that where Miller got the idea for the Polecats after going to see Cirque du Soleil. He thought
Right.
it would be too dangerous to do, and he planned to use CGI to create the Polecats. But when he mentioned his idea to the stunt supervisor, Guy Norris, he said, no, we don't need CGI, we can do that for real.
Brilliant.
And they actually used some real Cirque du Soleil performers to do it.
Brilliant.
Incredible. That shot where Max is on the pole and the truck explodes in the background. Incredible stuff.
Sliding over the front of the frame. Yeah. It's things like,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And Matt,
And
what's
when he
your
goes
highlight?
right down to the road,
Yeah.
he lifts his
yeah.
head by like
Yeah.
that much.
Yeah.
It's like that much.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
And Matt, what's your highlight from the film?
Well, it's an action sequence, unsurprisingly, isn't it? So,
Is it?
it is, funnily enough, yeah. It's probably best described as a thumbs-up sequence, which I kind of mentioned already, because for a start,
Yes.
it looks incredible.
Okay.
When it starts, this is when the bikes are jumping over the top of the wall rig, dropping grenades on it.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Great.
But more than that, it's a really important character moment because you get the point where Joe fires the grappling hook into the driver's cab and it pins Max's hand and they start to pull the war rig over.
Yes.
So then you get Anne Howard, who is the heavily pregnant one of the wives. She's straight in there, just swings out there on the door with the bolt cutters, frees it, but it still plows into the side of the box. You think for a minute, oh shit, she's gone. But then she ducks back out, just wants to take cover.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah,
fantastic.
brilliant
It's a
moment, that.
brilliant moment. And this is why you want someone like Tom Hardy in there, because he can do so much without any dialogue. And you can see just when they look at each other, you can see like the light go off in his head, like, oh, okay, right, these aren't little princesses. They're actually really capable, and I've underestimated how tough they are. And this is the moment for me where they just gel as a team and they're all going to be working together now. And they've got the same purpose, and it's amazing. But then the film just like turns on a sixpence, he doesn't, because then she slips and she falls to her death, which that is such a tricky thing to pull off, because we did Fargo as a podcast episode a couple of months ago. And we said on that, you know, one of the great things about that, the film never puts Marge in danger as a pregnant woman, because that would feel very wrong.
Oh, jeez.
This obviously goes far beyond that, and somehow it still works. This could have been a moment where you're going, oh, they're killing like a pregnant woman. Sorry, I can't like watch something like this. But it works somehow. They judge it perfectly. It is horrible, but it doesn't
The
feel
baby's
gratuitous.
Still delivered as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, gets delivered later on.
He's like spinning the
Yeah.
umbilical cord, like, oh, it would have been
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Dead now.
Richard is like, I had a brother.
I had a little baby brother!
Yeah,
It's because it's so mental. That's why
That's it, that's
it's
it.
a bonkers.
Insane. But it's-
yeah,
oh, well, you know, that's fucked. All right, fair one. Yeah. It just shows how little respect they have for human
Yeah.
life. It's
Yeah.
just brilliantly
yeah,
done.
it is, because it shouldn't work, but
Yeah.
it's handled really well emotionally, because you can see how devastated the other wives are that they've lost one of the number. So it's played just right. Great action, but in terms of character and in terms of emotional investment, this is where the film really kicks into gear for me.
She went under the wheels.
So our highlights then, I mean, as a film, it's just like one long highlight
It
reel, I
is,
think,
yeah.
isn't it?
Of course it is. You can't really separate it. Oh, I like the bit when the water comes out. Shut up, man. You like the whole film.
Mad Matt, you first, please. Your summary and score for Fury Road.
Well, it's definitely not mediocre, is it? Mediocre! Not a chance.
No.
It looks incredible. I can't get enough of how this film looks, and I struggle to think of another action film that is so well paced as this one is, because it's relentless, and you would think, isn't that going to end up being a bit tiring? Nah, not a bit of it. I'm just so engaged with this from first frame to the last. But in amongst all that action, that's maybe where the film really impresses, because there's some amazing world building going on. I totally believe everything about this film and the world in which they live. There's proper great performances in here, particularly from Theron. There's character arcs, there's emotional beats, but the emotional beats aren't overdone. The work, everything works in context. And overall, when you think what this film could have been, it could have been a cheap and easy cash in. It could have been, we'll just carry on the Mad Max name. We'll, you know, that's all it needs to be. What it actually is a pretty incredible achievement. And I just struggle to think of anything else like this film, really, in terms of tension, in terms of pace, in terms of how it looks. And I just come back to what George Miller did and how he just envisioned this in a way that everybody else would have gone, George, come on, you've got to be kidding. You can't do that. You can't go to that location. You can't put everybody's lives in danger by shooting it like that. But he did, and it works beautifully. There really is just There's nothing about this film that I don't like. There's nothing in this film that I think, I wish that was just a little bit better. I even don't mind the fact that the plot is basically them driving in a big circle and going back again. That's fine. I'm with it. I love this film. It's a 10 for me.
Lovely.
Boom, big one.
Yeah, for me, it's very straightforward. So it's going to be a pretty short summary, I think. As an action movie, which is exactly what it's trying to be, it's flawless, this film. It's unique, great cast, excellent writing. It looks fantastic, brilliantly directed, and all-time great action. Usually when I watch a film, even one that I really like, there'll be moments where I think, oh, we should have done this instead. I think that would have been a bit better. But here, there's nothing I'd change. I think it's pretty perfect, which means it's going to get a pretty perfect score of 10 out of 10.
Oof. No pressure, Wesley.
And Wesley, go for it.
It's a 3, mate.
We know you're going 10, so just get on with it.
I was bored all the way through. It's a fucking 10. It's a massive film. It's I love it. I'll never get tired of watching it. I'm so pleased George Miller made this. I'm so proud of him for making this. I'm so proud of him for sticking to that vision and being so very, very true to himself. It's one of them rare films where you just go, this is a filmmaker making a film that he wants to make. And I don't really give a shit if he thought it was going to make money or going to be a franchise from it. It was what he needed to make at the time he needed to make it. I love it for that. I love him for that. I love everyone for being in it. There's not a minute of it I don't like. It's a 10.
Of course. So overall, that leaves Mad Max Fury Road with a whopping 30 out of 30.
Boom.
The perfect score. And that's that on this episode of The Cutting Room. To support us in what we do and to gain access to extra bonus videos, please support us on Patreon. Your help and support is hugely appreciated, and the more support we get, the more videos like this we can make.
Yes,
and
definitely.
Come back next time, as always, for our next episode.
Please do, guys. Thank you.
Pressing on with the fork then, Westy.
Subscribe, share and like, and follow us on social media for more fire, blood and shiny and chrome movie content.